Hey, MMT followers, Christina Fugis with MoldMaking Technology for another quick MMT chat. My guest today is Charlie Daniels, who is the Chief Financial Officer for Wepco Plastics out of Middlefield, Connecticut. And he is also one of MoldMaking Technology's newer editorial advisory board members. So hello, Charlie.
Hello, how are you?
I am good. I cannot complain, or I won't complain, I always say.
Yeah, okay.
So we
you.
met probably about 3 or 4 years ago
Yeah,
at an annual American Mold Builders conference, if you remember.
I do.
Which I have to say that throughout my MMT career, those events are the events that introduced me to some of my most valued and closest industry contacts, But anyway, we met because of social media, if you remember. And I think it was Twitter in particular that back then, that was new to me back then. Until this year too, I was very active. I kind of backed off on Twitter a little bit, but it caught your attention because Wepco was very active across social media too. And that's kind of what the connection was, got us kind of talking, and you knew Westminster Tool and I knew Westminster Tool. Yeah. So I like to think that social media kind of brought us together. So, and oh my gosh, 3 years or so, what has happened even with me personally on social media and what you, Wepco Plastics, have been doing, it's insane. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you believe the role of social media is in mold making and in molding today.
Sure, yeah. And well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I remember that day meeting you like it was yesterday. And yeah, I asked Hillary to introduce us because I was like, I have to meet her. Like, she's doing all the things that we're trying to do, and it's so nice because not a lot of people in our industry were doing that. And I still feel like there's a lot of room to grow in our industry. So for us, the biggest thing, bar none, is that it's a platform to tell our story. There's a way that you can tell our story and start to build relationships and build awareness for yourself and your brand on social media that you just can't do anywhere else. You can't do that on a cold call or an email blast or on a billboard or anything like that. We get to set a platform, set a stage, and introduce the world to who we really are. And that's what we believe is that, the fact is we build really good molds and we make really good parts. But can you get the same mold built somewhere else? Probably, to be honest with you. I mean, we're good, but there's a lot of places that are good. But we know that people want to do business with us because of who we are. So social media allows us to show everybody who we are. And that's why, we think that we're the best at what we do, because we're the best company to work with.
Gotcha. So out of curiosity, what is your favorite? I mean, the platforms have just increased over the years. What do you think is your, maybe not the best, what is your favorite first? And then what is the most effective platform? Or is there a difference?
Yeah, there is. So I really like LinkedIn. I like the concept of LinkedIn. It's totally different, I think, than the rest of them. A lot of other ones are kind of similar. And LinkedIn for business is, I think, the best. The most effective, unfortunately, is not LinkedIn. I wish that it was, but I think Facebook is probably still the most effective because you can really target ads well. They give you so many really good tools in targeting demographics, area, specific location, times of day, all types of things. And you get a lot more analytics through Facebook than I believe you get with the other ones. My least favorite, they didn't ask that, but, and maybe it's a guilty pleasure, kind of, but I think my least favorite has to be TikTok right now because my children are obsessed with it. And so all day long, they're walking through the house doing these like 20-second dances. And so, so maybe I enjoy it a little bit, but I really don't want to.
Exactly. Those kind of apps, yeah, they're hysterical. If something like that were to take off within our industry, that would be hilarious.
Right. Yeah.
So do you think for Facebook is interesting because when we look at the analytics for mold making too, that seems to be the one that is the most effective. I would have to imagine, is that a sign that is our average industry person too? Like, think about Facebook, like a younger person, like Facebook is over with and done with, right? So I hate to say it could be a sign of that, but the fact that it's the most effective, people, I believe in our industry, that's the social media thing they use personally. So if they're there, we need to go where they are, and perhaps that's why, but we need to kind of educate them on the other platforms that may be even more effective. But do you think that's a good, I don't know, analysis of why Facebook? Because I'm not even on Facebook personally.
Okay, yeah, so I am, and it's probably personally the one that I use the most.
Okay.
So I have
For
friends and
family?
family. Yeah, for sure. Like I'm on there. If I had to pick, like if I have 5 minutes and I was going to go on one, I think I probably tend to go to Facebook, although LinkedIn is a close second. So I know Twitter or Instagram is probably the preferred for a lot of people,
Right.
but it's always been Facebook for me. And I think that it's really important. And this is something that we're trying to improve with, but with your point that people use these for different things, our
Right.
messaging has to be different on each of these. And sometimes we're putting out the same message across those, but it's really important for us to understand our audience,
Yep.
how they're using it, why they're using it, when they're using it. So a lot of research goes in at Wepco to analytics and trying to sort these out and figure out how people are interacting with our content, so that we can develop better content that is channel specific. So we're
Exactly.
definitely not there now, but we're working towards it. So
Yeah,
continuous
that's
improvement.
true. All right, so let's get back to you. So you are the CFO at Wepco Plastics. So give us a little snapshot of who Wepco Plastics is for those of people out there that do not know, and then how you wound up there.
So Wepco Plastics has been around since the mid 80s. We are an injection molder and a mold builder. We work primarily, we started off as a prototype company, and we still do some of that work. It's actually came back around. For a while we weren't doing as much of it, but now we are doing more of it. But our focus is really, we do soft tooling, aluminum tooling. So a lot of our customers are looking for something they can get quick to market, maybe less expensive than steel tools, and they're also looking for lower run production from our molding room. So those are the types of customers that we bring in, people that maybe need bridge tooling or something they're testing out a part, or they don't need a lot of parts per year. So we can be a full service solution for them. Most of our customers are somewhere we make between 1,000 and 100,000 parts per year. Molding is about 65 to 70% of our business, and the rest is either our mold building or some other stuff that we do, design work and product development. But it's started in our owner's basement, like so many companies, great stories that I hear. And Waldo Parmalee is the owner, and his son, David Parmalee, is our president. And they lived about a mile from where I grew up. And so Wally was my Little League baseball coach, and Dave was a really close friend of mine for years and years and years, since I was in 6th grade and he was in 5th grade. We did, we hung out, we played football together. Dave was in our wedding. And so I've known them for a long time. And it just happened that they had a retirement, their office manager, and they needed some assistance. And I had a consulting company. So I went in and I helped them, and the relationship kind of worked, and they wanted to bring me on full time. And so we went back and forth for a while, and then 7+ years later, here I am.
Here you are. And you are so much more, getting to know you, than a CFO. I mean, I do believe it's a little unique, the position that you have within a family shop that size, right? You have to admit that. And what you bring to that shop is invaluable. And it's way beyond just what I would say is a CFO. So give us a little snapshot of what is a day in the life of Charlie Daniels? What do you do in a day?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I always say, like, the title just looks good on a business card. I should probably have a different title, but I don't want to get new business cards because I'm cheap. So I'll tell you what my day looks like now, because it's a little bizarre because I'm working from home. So I usually wake up around 4-ish in the morning because my wife is waking up then to go to the gym. And so a lot of times I'll start to check some emails, then look at some other apps, maybe some analytics stuff, look at banking, anything that I know that I have to do that day, and I'll start to kind of play through my day. A lot of times I'll go back to sleep for a little bit, and then the kids start waking up and Amy comes home from the gym. So I then have to drop my middle child off at school every day. And so I'll take her, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays, my son, my youngest, who's 4, Bowden, stays home with me. So
Okay.
he'll come in the car with me on those days. So now I've come back and I'm home for a little while. Any emails or anything that's really pressing, I'll get to right there. But most days around 9 o'clock, I go to the gym.
Okay.
And so I go there for about an hour, and it's a really good kind of early kind of start to my day. And then when I come home, I really get into things. Then people have started their days,
Right.
and it's really a good time to start connecting with people. So any calls that I have or meetings, or now I'm getting responses to my emails, so I'll start to look at that. But the bulk of my day, what I'm actually doing during the day is a lot of long-term stuff. I'm looking at strategy, I'm looking at budgets, I'm looking for trends. I spend time on social media, probably about an hour every day, reading what's going on out there, looking for things that we might be able to get involved with or take advantage of. I do a lot of outreach work in the community. That takes up a big part of my day, and also a lot of like PR type stuff. So that's
A
it.
little
And
bit
my
of everything, it sounds like.
little bit of everything. Yeah, I get kind of bored. So like during the day, so I can't work on something for like 3 hours, like a budget or something like that. So during the day, I'll like pick up my guitar and play for 15 minutes. And so my kind of work day spans like 16 hours, but
Okay.
I'm not working for 16 hours. Like I coach CrossFit at night, or my kids will have
Okay.
an event, or I'll have practice with my band or whatever. So then I come home and end my day with work too. So it's not, it works really good for me. I have to have things segmented. So
Now, was it that type of a schedule pre-COVID to an extent, or was it completely different?
it was, but I would go in more then, so I would have some more structured days. But even
Okay.
like my structured day at Wepco Plastics wasn't necessarily a structured day. I would go in and have some things I have to do, but again, I keep a guitar there. So like if I was in the middle of something and I needed to think, I would play for a little while, or I would get up and go like bother Dave or bother Amanda. And so
Right.
they're really happy that I'm not there as much, because they're a lot more productive, because I'm just kind of out there.
Bouncing
But
around.
yeah,
So
so I
you have,
definitely can do that
so it
stuff. But
sounds like you're focused on the business side of this manufacturing operation. So
yeah,
you have to have, by doing this now for 7 years, you're saying, right?
yeah, a little bit more if you take in like the consulting years too. But
Okay.
yeah, I've been a Wepco employee for 7+ years. Yeah.
Okay. And you've had major exposure to other shops and similar shops. So
Yes.
do you have any advice for other shops in terms of improving the business side of a mold builder, of a molding business? Because as you probably know too, that's not a strength, right? They're craftsmen, they're skilled people. A lot of times they struggle with the business side of manufacturing. So do you have any advice for them on how to improve that side of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've actually made a career out of having little to no skills anywhere, because I've worked in all these different industries, but I can't really like do anything. Like I own a construction company, but I can't build anything, and I work in manufacturing, but I don't make anything. So it's very fortunate for me that that's not a focus in a lot of shops. But the best advice that I can give is that somebody has to focus on it. It has to be really important, top of mind. It's really the only thing that's important. And I say this a lot, and Dave probably doesn't like the way that I say it, but I said it already and I'll repeat it. But there's a lot of people out there that make really, really, really good molds. It's just a fact. I'm on the AMBA board as well,
Yeah.
and I get a chance to meet all of these people. And there's some really great craftsmen out there that do a really good job. But if you want to differentiate yourself and you want to be around, if you want to survive through things like COVID and all these ups and downs, you have to have a focus on your business. Go out and read the book E-Myth. It doesn't. If you can be a really good plumber, that doesn't mean that you're a really good owner of a plumbing company. You can be a
Yep.
really great mold maker. That doesn't mean that you can own a really successful mold building operation. You have to have people that, if it's not your strength, you have to be able to unload that on somebody, whether it's marketing or finance or whatever it is, day-to-day type of operations. But if you're the owner, you can't remove yourself from that. You can't say like, well, my accountant handles that. You have to have regular meetings with them. You have to understand the finances. If somebody hands you a profit and loss sheet, you have to be able to go through and understand it. Even if you can't necessarily put it together and you're not a whiz at it, you still have to understand it. You have to know what your marketing plan is. But I talk to people all the time, and it's February, and I say, hey, how was your last year? Oh, I'm still waiting for my accountant to get back to me. Dude, the year's over. You should have known how your year was in July and started to make changes. But it's not comfortable for a lot of people. A lot of people don't. They gravitate what they're really good at or what they're passionate about, and it's like a load off when it's like, oh, thank God this guy's going to handle my finances for me. But that's a really big mistake in so many ways, because the other thing is that I had to do for myself. I've done a lot of training, and I went through Arbor training, and I've went through Paulson training, and I've done online training for every aspect of what we do, just so I can understand our capabilities better. I'm not going to. They don't want me on the floor actually doing things, but I need to understand what everybody in the shop does so that I can make their job easier and I can use their skills to make the business better. So, yeah, so that's my advice is focus on it. It can't be something else. I think the quote is, you have to spend time working on your business, not just in your business. Exactly. So that's the best quote that I could share.
It's true. All right. So speaking of finances, I know the last time I spoke to you, we did that podcast a while back. Yes. I know you like Dave Ramsey, right? So talking about the financial side, back then, I don't know if you just launched it, but you were actually offering his classes on the financial, right? Personal financing to your employees. Is that something that has grown? Did you implement that? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So Dave Ramsey changed my life for sure. I used to work in hospitality industry when I was in my 20s, and that's what my bachelor's degree was in, and I figured that was going to be my career. And so, but one day I used to always listen to NPR on the radio. I was covering somebody's shift, and so I was going in my car on a time that I usually wasn't there, and I turn on the car, the radio comes on, and there's this guy talking, and people are calling in and asking about finances, and he's just kind of laying into them, and he's saying all these things that just made so much sense to me, because I was just about 30 then, and I was unsure about a lot of things. I wasn't totally happy where I was financially, and listening to him say these things that I was already kind of thinking, but putting a spin on it that made total sense to me. And he uses a lot of biblical principles, and he uses a lot of no-nonsense stuff. So all of that stuff really spoke to who I was. And so I pull into the parking lot, and he's still talking, and I still don't know his name. And so I ended up being 15 minutes late to work, even though I was in the parking lot, because I had to listen to the end of it, and I had to find out who this guy was. So I go home from work that night, I look him up, and I see all this stuff that he's doing. He's got books. I read his books, and I start living by his principles. My wife and I did. I had to convince her a little bit, but then she was totally on board. And it completely changed our lives personally, and in business as well.
Wow. So do you offer it? Talk about, is it something that you spread that to your employees? Because you realize that especially the younger ones, right? Some of these people that work at Wepco are young enough that this could be their first job, their second job. I remember going to high school. You don't grow up learning all that stuff naturally, how to balance a checkbook, and maybe the extent of what it is, but to really understand to take care of yourself financially. So I know you were big on, you're making money now. You want these people to be able to buy a house and start a family and, have what they want, but they need to understand their personal finances. So is that something you still provide as a company?
Yeah, so we have done a lot of financial education, and we were getting ready to launch our first Financial Peace University, which is Dave Ramsey's class, back in the spring, which we weren't able to do because of COVID, but we're still hoping to do that. We have offered financial education in a lot of other ways, and we continue to do that, but I really would like to bring Dave Ramsey's classes in. I teach them. I've taught a couple in my community, facilitated them, but I really want to bring it into Wepco Plastics and be able to have those classes there. Because the fact is people will talk about how money isn't everything, but it touches everything. It affects relationships. It breaks up marriages.
Yep.
It has significant mental and emotional effects on people. The stress that's caused from financial related issues causes health issues that kill people. These are facts. And the majority of the things that are wrong in people's lives somehow are related to finances. So if we can take care of that one thing, and we can teach people to, one, not have debt, two, live on a budget. And this goes for businesses too, because there's a lot of businesses out there that do not have a budget that they're working on. There's a lot that use debt way too much. They're way too leveraged. And things like COVID come up and they're stuck. So if you can live by those principles, I mean, so when I was 42 years old, I'm 44 now, my wife and I paid the mortgage off on our house. So I'm 40 years old right now. Thank you very much. And I have this legacy that I can leave to my children of financial education and financial wherewithal that is going to be the best thing that I ever give to them. Because I brought them all at 8:30 in the morning down to Citizens Bank in Colchester, Connecticut. We all got in the family van, walked in, and handed over a check and paid off the mortgage. And then
oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was great. And then we had to tell her, take our picture. It was a little bit unceremonious because she gave us this like little small receipt, and it looked like the machine needed ink. So it's, it's like, here's our thing. But anyway, it was done. And that was one of the greatest things that I've ever accomplished, because it was 12 years in the making. So
that's all. And to share that with your family, right? That next generation. I mean, that's what a pivotal, they'll never forget that.
Never, no. And that's really important to me. And I try to share that story because it's totally possible. When we started this, I was making like $33,000 a year, and my wife was making less than that. And a couple of years after when we started to pay off our credit cards, we did away with car payments. We both went back to school. I went back for my MBA, and we both we bankrolled our education. So now we have zero debt. And it's something that I try to instill at Wepco too, not just with educating our employees, but we try to always work off of a budget and keep to that budget and talk about that budget and have it out there and talk about finances openly. And we try to have zero or a reduced amount of debt. So
I think that's so, this ties in nicely to the next question about culture too, because when you talk about caring for your employees, like financial well-being, in the end, if you're a business, and you're going to know that, you're going to agree, if your employees are stressed, that's going to impact your bottom line. Like, they're going to not come to work. I mean, it affects their productivity, their mentality. So it's all connected. So it's so worth it to look at the employee, the whole person, right, of the employee, and really try to help them. And I think that's something we're going to see a trend toward that. Like, it's nice to do all, the picnics and all the different incentivized things, but to really care about their life outside the shop, you're going to win for that, because it'll make them better, safer, more confident employees. So I applaud Wepco for doing that. I hope that's something we see more in shops across mold making. So culture is a big deal at Wepco. Everybody can define that differently. So how do you define Wepco's culture? And then give us a little taste for, it's something you have to work on constantly. So how do leadership and the employees continually work on it? So what is it, and how do you continue to work on it and get everybody on board?
Sure. So so there's definitely a deep, it's rooted in caring. It's caring for our employees, caring for our customers, caring for our community. We have 4 core values that we live off of, and it's do more, impact your community, never stop improving, and always do the right thing. So we're trying to bring people into our business, employees, but also partners and vendors and customers that align with that. But our culture, so we've defined an ideal state for a culture, but it's just like anything else in life, any relationship. It's an idea, it's a dream, and it's a hope. It's to be able to say, like, to my wife, it's like, hey, here's how our marriage is going to work, and here's the ring, and we're going to do this, and see you in 55 years, whatever. That's not realistic. So our culture isn't perfect. It's a constant work in progress based on those core values. Okay. So when we talk about really, you made such a great point when you were talking about the outside stresses that people have. Everybody has a life. To us as leaders, their life, their work-life balance is the most important thing. I grew up in a culture where, you were supposed to, check your baggage at the door, and once you clock in, you're on stage and everything else doesn't matter. And that is unrealistic, because
Yep.
if you have financial stress or relationship, or you have an issue with like a sick child or something like that, how am I going to expect you to come in and do your best work? So it's up to me. Another thing that I don't agree with from the past work culture is when you're in leadership, there's this wall. Your frontline workers, we're leadership, we can't get too close. I don't agree with that at all. I want to know as much as possible about the rest of my team. I want them to know about me. I want them to understand what makes me tick. And so that's why we try to really engage with them as much as possible. And we look at personality tests and all of these other things. But at the end of the day, it's really about having these conversations. I just
Connecting.
Yeah, really connecting. And I just had a conversation with Amanda today, and she was sharing with me, like, hey, you're going to see this small charge because one of our employees had some fraud on their bank account, and so the paycheck that was supposed to go in there bounced back to us, and so we're recutting it, just like an FYI to me.
Okay.
But then we talked about it was like, so this person is going through something that could be potentially very stressful for them. If you've ever had that happen to you, he's probably got bill pay things that have to redirect. He might have had stuff, checks in the mail. So it was like, so we talked, I was like, how can we help? And maybe it's just as simple, it's really talking to him to see what he needs. But if it's like, hey, let's give this guy an hour on the clock today to go in an office and make some calls and handle this so that he can walk out of that room and be like, all right, I feel like I can concentrate now. Because it's unrealistic for us to think that he's going to be able to go on a machine and do his best work when that's in his mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's about flexibility. It's about genuine caring. And when I interview someone, I gloss through people's resumes and stuff now because they took the time to do it. But I'm really interested in the first things I talk about is like, what are your hobbies? What do you do outside of work? What do you like to do? Why do you like to do that? And I can answer basically all of the things. Do they align to those 4 core values by how they live their life? Talking to them about what they're passionate about, I know that I can see if they're a fit or not. And then we'll get to the, all right, CAD, you built a mold bubble.
That is a recurring theme nowadays. It's that. It's getting to know the person, and it's that whole thing where, you can teach them the skills later, but, what do they need? Who are they like? Get them in here. Do they want to work? Yeah, I agree with that. All right. So last but not least, I can't not talk about COVID. So just a little bit. I know Wepco did a lot in terms of getting involved in the whole PPP, right? And the PPE and the face shields and doing all this stuff for the local community and hospitals. So do you want to give a little update on what it's like today in that world? And then lastly, as a small family-owned mold manufacturer, molder, how do you see yourself emerging from this when it's all hopefully said and done? So yeah, give me an update on where things stand with your different projects, and then where do you see Wepco moving forward?
Yeah, so we've made somewhere close to 700,000 face shields that we provided we did do some hotels and restaurants, but hospitals primarily, the state of Connecticut, like the Department of Corrections, and several other types of business that were on the front lines through this. So our office, where you've been in, like where the conference room is and all the front office, we converted that to manufacturing space. So because we didn't have room in the back, plus we were socially distancing and trying to make these pods that weren't interacting with each other. So we did that, and that's starting to ramp down. So we are not doing nearly as many. We still have some orders to fulfill. Right now, we were lucky enough to get a grant from the state of Connecticut to purchase a 3D printer. And we've been using that to do some prototypes and make some other products that we've either been giving away, like the ear protectors, but also to improve our face shields and to create a see-through transparent face mask that we were going to try to print, but we found out because we're a mold builder, it was a lot more economical and more effective, a better product too, if we were to build a mold. So we finished that up, and we're going to start putting that out and marketing it. So we've always been like a contract manufacturer, right? Where we're building the mold for somebody else and we're making parts for someone else. And this was one of our first real kind of diving into product development for ourselves, where we had to design, create, market, distribute our own product. So that was definitely a unique experience.
A learning experience, right? Interesting.
Yeah, a really good. So we've been trying, there's been so many tragedies and just really sad stories and terrible things that have happened during COVID, with deaths and people losing their jobs, all of these things. So we've been really trying to accentuate the positive and extract lessons out of this. So going forward, it was an affirmation, first of all, that all of our training, all of our focus on social media, and all of our focus on continuous improvement and on really doing effective change management and being open to that, it served us so well during this time, because we were able to really thrive during a time that so many people were struggling. And it's been an affirmation, and we're going to be stronger on the outside of this, because we know that some of these things work, and we know that we have to rely on lean principles. We have to rely on communication. We have to rely on technology more than ever. And it's really, and our people, I mean, showing up every single day in this pandemic with health concerns and personal issues outside of work, it was a real testament to their loyalty and to their determination and their passion for what they do. And I couldn't be prouder.
It's awesome. I feel like you, Wepco, and not just Wepco, a lot of shops, but you really went into this, unbeknownst to you, right? You were almost prepared for this, in a sense, that you were strong enough working on those skills and working on the culture that you were able to survive this. So much so that you were able to reach out and help others, right? And convert something into manufacturing to help. Now, I guarantee you not all shops were prepared to do that you had a team together ready to take it on. I think that's so important. And believe me, I, like you, have made it my goal to focus on the positive through all this, because there's no point in focusing on the negative. Even though I realize you learned from that, there's just so much good happening, and we need to focus on that. And this industry, oh my gosh, in terms of, if you didn't know what a mold was or what mold making could do, if COVID taught you anything, it's like you need them. And what you do is so critical. I just think in that regard, what a silver lining to a horrible disruption, whatever you want to call it. It's such a great silver lining. So on that note, I want to thank you for your time today, Charlie. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, for all your insight, and for serving on the board with a bunch of your other colleagues. This is a great time talking to you. You're such a unique perspective inside a nice shop like that. So thank you for your time.
You are so welcome, and thank you for having me and for giving me the opportunity. And I really, really appreciate it. And anytime that I have the opportunity to spend some time with you, I'll always take it, because it's always a really good, fun conversation that I always take away something. So thank you from bottom.
No problem. Thank you. So hopefully we'll see each other when this is all said and done. We can give each other a hug, a handshake. We'll see what happens. So to everybody out there watching, remember, for everything mold making, visit MoldMakingTechnology.com. Stay safe, stay healthy, and more importantly, stay informed and stay inspired.